Hey everyone, welcome back to Thriving in Ambiguity, the podcast where we take on the complexities of technology and innovation, transforming the unknown into opportunities for growth. I'm your host, Steve Mancini, and I'm thrilled to have you here for episode 2 of the mini-series on Alletra MP storage. In episode 1, we explored the foundational elements of the Alletra MP platform, its disaggregated architecture, all-active design, and the ability to scale compute capacity independently. We also touched on 100% data availability guarantee and how it's redefining storage management for modern enterprises. Today, we're diving deeper into the software innovations that power Alletra MP, making it one of the most advanced storage platforms in the industry. We'll cover critical features like deduplication and compression, replication and peer persistence, intent-based provisioning with AI, and some game-changing tools in the Data Services Cloud Console, including virtual lock and virtual copy snapshots. I want to start with a quick reminder. HPE Alletra MP is a modular container-based software-defined solution running on hardware. This design allows customers to deploy it on-premise, as an appliance, or in the public cloud as a service. The platform ships with an all-inclusive system software license covering all the features I just mentioned, and then some. And one big advantage is that new capabilities will be automatically added to your subscription. So you get performance and features without any additional upcharges. It's a CapEx-friendly system where everything you need is included. There's no hidden fees and no surprise add-ons, which I love. Now, there is one exception, that there is a $1 charge to enable data encryption. And that's simply because in some countries, you're not allowed to include encryption without a fee. So in order to make that simple, we charge $1 for it. That's the only kind of gotcha out there. It's like, hey, what is this $1 charge for encryption? Like, that doesn't make any sense. So yes, okay. But because Alletra MP ships fully loaded, it delivers the essential capabilities enterprises need right out the box. Plus, everything is fully managed through the Data Services Cloud Console. Now, we do call that DSCC for short. So if you hear one or the other, that's where I'm going with that. And it is a SaaS platform that offers a centralized cloud-based management experience. Doesn't have to be, but that's the best way to utilize it. We can run the system, basically on-prem where it's basically self-enclosed. So if you have restrictions there, we can meet that. But ideally, we really want to run it as a SaaS application where you have that cloud-like experience like you would get with public cloud. That's what we're aiming for here. With that out of the way, let's jump into these software features. Let's start with deduplication and compression. Two must-have features that maximize storage efficiency and lower cost. These technologies have evolved to the point where vendors, HPE included, confidently provide data reduction guarantees. And in HPE's case, it's a 4-to-1 data efficiency guarantee for block workloads. Deduplication eliminates redundant data by storing only one instance of duplicate blocks. For example, if you have virtual machines sharing the same operating system, this is about as easy as it comes. And you may have multiple virtual machines on a system. Well, the operating system is 99% the same. So it's not going to keep for every virtual machine a copy of that. That doesn't make sense because all of the data is the same. So it's only going to keep a copy of the blocks that are different. So it'll keep one of each. And then after that, it's just changes. Okay, does that make sense? Compression, on the other hand, further reduces the size of data blocks. And that just comes down to how they're optimized and stored on the physical media. So between the two, that's really where you get what we call compaction. Okay, so if you hear compaction, that's what they're talking about. Dedupe and compression together. Now, thanks to these technologies, you no longer need to over-provision storage. However, if you don't fully trust the guarantee, then you're force buying more capacity than you'll ever use. I mean, that's the reality. And this happens all the time. People are still not totally locked in on trusting that guarantee, trusting deduplication and compression. They've always kind of gone on usable capacity, and we'll talk about that in a second. And because of that, they end up overbuying, okay? And in many, many cases, unless you have an environment where you're constantly growing, typically that those resources sit there for years, and in most cases they're never used, and it's just a waste of money that could have been put towards something else. So to avoid overspending, it's critical to understand how these capacity measurements work. Okay, so number one, raw capacity. This is the total storage before formatting, system overhead, and data reduction. Essentially, this is how many disks your system starts with. So, on a base level Alletra MP, you may see that system come with 8 disks. Okay, so everybody's a little bit different, but that is the raw capacity. Basically, how many disks your storage appliance ships with. Now, a quick tip. It's good to understand how capacity can be added here, because everybody's underlying technology is different. I can tell you that from experience. I worked at both Dell and now HPE. I've looked at what Pure does. I've looked at what NetApp does. Everybody does this differently. So it's a really good idea to ask, how do I scale my infrastructure? And so when you ask that question, you're going to find, different answers. Some vendors are going to say you could add one disk at a time. In HPE's case, it's 2 disks at a time. But in some system, it's disk packs. Okay? Can't do 1 or 2. You got to do like 7 or more. Okay? And if you think about that, these disks are not cheap. So if you only need a few terabytes of space, maybe you're running a little bit low, well, it'd be really nice to add that 1 or 2 disks. Okay? If you got to, buy a whole shelf, that's a problem. That can get real expensive real quick, and you might not be ready for that, which is one of the reasons people buy all this stuff, because they don't want to take the risk there. But I'm telling you, as long as it scales easily, the 1 or 2 disk increments, that's a pretty safe place to be. Okay. Second is usable capacity. We're talking about storage after accounting for system overhead, RAID, and sparing. This is where historically customers purchase storage based on usable capacity, because older and less advanced systems offered limited dedupe and compression, and everybody had varying approaches to data protection schemes. And because of that, it often made a big difference in how systems were compared. There could be huge differences in how one company, if you just went by, let's say, how many disks were in the system, based on how they were striping, what level of mirroring or what RAID policy they're using, it could be massively different in what that array looks like and what it costs. So, like I said, that's typically where people default to. My recommendation, number 3 on the list, is effective capacity. This is the capacity available after dedupe and compression and thin provisioning. So, in today's market, effective capacity is really what matters. And since the vendor's approach to data reduction can differ, just pay attention, because this is really, you want to make sure you get apples to apples, so you're evaluating, as close to possible what one system does compared to another. So when you're evaluating storage based on effective capacity, hold the vendors accountable to their guarantees. If the vendor's going to say, hey, we do 4-to-1 and we promise, and here's the guarantee and here's what it looks like, hold them to it. Okay? Which leads to the question, can I actually trust the guarantee? So HPE's data reduction approach helps you right-size your environment and avoid the overbuying. This allows you to maximize your cost savings. because their guarantee is backed by real world accountability. Like, this isn't made up, right? I mean, this is using all the analytics that they have, which says for block workloads, we can actually hit this and there's no surprises. They're real confident in that. So, honestly, you could be confident in that. And like I said, I worked at both Dell and HPE, and I have seen situations where a customer did not, for one reason or another, get the 4-to-1 guarantee. And in that case, it was honored. It was very simple. Customer, basically opened up a ticket, said, "Hey, I'm not getting the reduction that I need." And we took a look at it. You dive in and it says, "Okay, this is simple. Send the customer 2 more disks. Let's write the environment and problem solved." That's it. I mean, so it's not a major inconvenience for a vendor. If they don't live up to it, they'll just send you more disks and you'll be all good. So it's not like we're going to come back to you and say, "Hey, no, you did something wrong here," and then you're gonna have to pay $50,000 more dollars. You're gonna have to buy a new array. We don't need to do that anymore. So be confident, and you should be in a pretty good spot. Next up, replication. Now, this is crucial for backup and disaster recovery. So Alletra supports a couple different forms of replication. They have synchronous replication for 0 RPO, recovery point objectives. They have asynchronous for periodic replication. So if you have a situation where maybe you have 2 different data centers, but the pipe in between isn't fast enough or isn't consistent enough or is really far away, you may have to use it asynchronous where it sends data at intervals, and so you always maintain a backup, but it's not a like for like copy all the time. There's a delay there. So either synchronous or asynchronous. Now, the real standout one here is something called peer persistence. And peer persistence allows you to create a fully active setup across 2 locations. This allows seamless failover between sites without downtime or any intervention. This is especially useful in VMware environments where virtual machines continue running transparently during a site failure. Whether you're running a clustered app or a single server workload, peer persistence keeps everything operational. And honestly, one of the really cool features here is it's not site A to site B and I have a second copy. It could be site A and B running production workloads, sending data to both data centers and vice versa. So they each have a copy, okay? And if one goes down, everything keeps running. So it's not like it's got to be production and DR. No, it can kind of be production, and DR. And that is really, really cool. Now, to be fair, peer persistence does require a quorum witness, which is basically a lightweight virtual machine that distinguishes between link failures and full site outages. It enables automatic failover, ensuring the reliability and minimizing the downtime in the event of an outage. So ideally, this server is best located at a third site. If you have a third site within your environment, great. If you don't, public cloud's a great option for this. So throw it up there in public cloud, whatever your favorite one is. That way, it could see both sites all the time. Or in some situations, if that isn't an option or you can't afford to throw it up in the public cloud, I get it. Putting it at your DR location is acceptable, just not ideal. It's not best case scenario, but it does still work. And that's the recommendation. You would just add that witness to your DR environment. Now, when talking about backup and recovery, it would not be complete unless I mentioned snapshots. Snapshots on the Alletra are called virtual copy. Okay. And basically, they're space efficient point in time backups. But unlike